Hey everyone, it's Kai.
And Lafayette, and this is
The Theory of Living. Thanks for tuning in. We're able to bring you this episode thanks to our Patreon members.
Patreon is a subscription-based platform where people can provide support for content creators like us.
Thanks to our Patreon members and supporters, we're able to provide free content on the podcast and weekly episodes.
By being a Patreon member, you'll have access to our entire podcast library, full video and audio episodes, along with much more.
If you like this episode and you feel it adds value to your life,
or you hate it,
please subscribe on Patreon and or leave your review on Apple Podcast.
And don't forget to mention it to your friends over your next beer. Truly, thank you again, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. We're live. Yeah. Coming to you live. Well,
I can't even see my face. Look at that.
Oh, man. Nothing but a mic. But we're coming to you from Huntington Beach, California.
Yeah.
And we'd like to start by giving a shout out of appreciation to Matt, who gave us a lot of valuable feedback in regards to the podcast. And we're definitely going to add those things to try to improve upon it.
Yes.
So I'd like to start this podcast with the preface of saying we've got New Year's Eve rapidly approaching, and you know what that means. You're not going to hear anything more on Instagram but things about New Year's resolutions. Hashtag New Year, New Me. Hashtag stronger than before. Hashtag no, I really mean it this time. Hashtag, again, I'm serious, for real this time. So on this week's episode, we're going to talk about goal setting and the values of having goals, and maybe take on the approach of goal setting in a little bit different way than you've heard before. This might be new to you. It may not be. A little more philosophical take on why I set a goal and what that means.
Yep.
So, Kai.
Yeah. Well, before all that, I'm sorry. I think we need to explain exactly why we're here, you know, well, especially in the car. Why we're recording this podcast in the car. Okay?
Well, this is our usual set, right? We just missed in the backdrop.
Well, we just moved here, actually. No, actually, we're visiting Cody's family in California, Huntington Beach. And we actually wanted to... We could actually have rented a studio, no problem. But we wanted to, number one, kind of test this kind of situation, you know, horse situation or horse-your situation, to record a podcast. And also, let me... my face, dude. Also, you know, it's a great view behind us, you know.
And if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, or any other number of podcasting platforms, you can see the video on YouTube, and we'll include some B-roll footage of the beach and just how beautiful it is out here.
Yes.
But it's definitely a good test because we're supposed to be heading to Thailand next month.
Yes.
We'll arrive on the 15th, pending all the Omicron stuff. We've reached out to the Thai consular or embassy, and we're trying to get some things finalized with the recent Omicron variant.
Yes. Are you asking me questions?
No, I just saw you adjusting the mic there, so I was a little bit worried.
Yeah, I have to hold this actually right now. So usually it sits on the table, but not right now. I don't have any place to place this mic.
Oh wow! You know, have a fun podcast.
So well, fortunate enough that I have great arm strength. You know, if you can see this.
You can't see in the video, but he's resting his elbow.
You got me there.
All right, so Kai, what would you say is the primary reason we set goals, or what's the point in setting a goal to start with?
This is a big question, right? I mean, there are many reasons actually to set a goal, right? It could be something that, well, before saying all that, I think in a way that you can say that setting a goal is to create a purpose. The purpose could be your desire to get better at something or eliminate a bad habit. I mean, there could be so many reasons. But to simplify this process, to begin with, I mean, we're going to go into more in depth. I like to say that setting a goal is to create a purpose. And a purpose, having a purpose in life is important.
I think so, because then it makes it easier to know how you're supposed to navigate life. And maybe how to spend your time, what you should say yes to, what you should say no to. and can allow you to grow more into the person you want to be. It allows you to shape your destiny and purpose by having goals.
Mm-hmm.
But how does somebody even know what's a good goal to set?
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, we have very basic goals that people tend to set all the time because culturally that's a good goal somebody should have. Something like getting in shape.
Right.
Every New Year's Eve, we see that. The New Year's resolution. This year, I'm going to get in shape. Or this year, I'm going to be a better musician. It could be numerous things. But how do I know for myself, yeah, this is the goal I should take, rather than just borrowing from the societal standard of what a goal should be and a good one to have?
Which is the biggest problem, right? I think we've talked about this so many times that we really should talk about Lacan one day, because he's sort of the central figure to, shape this entire idea of self-identity in modern philosophy. We really should talk about him one day. But we've talked about, his idea, or our idea of, whether or not your idea is yours. And in that idea, we should, always be critical of what you're doing and why you're doing it. We've talked about this a lot. And setting a goal is really similar too. You can just take on whatever goal that is conventional or that is easily available out there. Maybe one day you go to TikTok or Instagram and you'll find a person who presents their new goal. You can just take on that. But before doing that, it could be a positive thing, just because you will have to go through harder process.
Yeah, it can be more difficult when you're inexperienced or maybe treading the path that's unknown to you without research. Right? You can maybe run into a situation where you could have avoided some of these bumps in the road had you just asked some people, talk to some people, do some Google searches or a little more self-reflection to avoid these bumps in the roads. And this is the value in when you're trying to set a goal or accomplish a goal and communicate with somebody who's already been on that path and accomplished it, or read a book about it, or consume any type of media about it, and then think about it critically. But for me, the first thing I have to ask myself when I see all these posts or hear these things in person about these New Year's resolution is, why? Why? And I've thought about it, and after some careful deliberation, I think the largest reason people just wait until New Year's to come up with goals and resolutions is just simply because that's when everybody else does it. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, that's not very insightful. Obviously, we all want to be a part of something, so of course a lot of people are going to set goals at the same time. But if you look at it deeper, I think the main reason people wait until now is because it removes all burden of responsibility and fear of failure. Because you expect that everybody kind of does this. There's no really skin in the game, so it doesn't matter if I fail. I mean, think about it. There's millions, if not hundreds of millions of people that are setting goals at this very moment or thinking about it for New Year's.
Right.
And you have, maybe if I'm being generous, 1% of that or people are going to succeed. And the goals can be so huge, from I'm going to learn guitar this year and master the guitar to I'm going to floss once a day. And people still fail at both those things. So I think it's important to ask ourselves, why am I setting this goal at New Year's Eve? Is this goal actually important to me? Do I really care about it? And if I did care about it, why did it take me till the end of the year to be like, yeah, now's the time to actually do it?
Correct. I think that's why it is important to ask yourself why. Okay. I think that should be the starting point. You should ask yourself why. Why you're doing this, or why you want to do this. Asking yourself why opens up possibilities, even when approaching without objectivity. It's going to force you to do value searching, through which you must find the answers. So it's going to make you active participant, rather than a passive participant. You can be totally passive entire time. Oh, these people are doing this weight loss, goal for the New Year's, so I'm going to do that too.
Yeah, it's easy to bandwagon a goal again from the place where we are historically and culturally to say this is a valuable thing worth having in my life. But again, if you didn't decide that value yourself or come to that decision, you're just kind of following the crowd, and you may not actually get the satisfaction from the goal. And even more so, you'll probably never even be able to complete the goal because it actually doesn't have value to you. You actually do not care about this.
Right.
And this may sound harsh, but a lot of people set goals and say, I care about these things, and have an idealistic mindset, but do nothing in physical reality to achieve these goals. They think that the fact that they care is actually an action, and that alone will propel them to this goal. But we all know that's not the case. Doesn't matter how much you care about fitness if you're not going to the gym.
Yeah.
You can say you do, but if there's no actuality to the goal and to your sense of caring, then you're really deceiving yourselves. And I think we do that all the time. We lie to ourselves about what we care about, and we assign value way higher than we actually are applying in our lives to these goals and to these things. So I think initially from the get-go, if you're setting a goal right now at New Year's Eve, you need to ask yourself very strongly, why? Am I doing this because everybody else is? Or do I really care about this? And that should just be the launching place for any goal. Before we can even set a goal, we have to ask what's important to us, and we have to create a value system.
Yes. So that's a really good point. Again, ask yourself why opens up possibilities. That's the important part. And then also asking yourself why exposes yourself to a position of challenging the status quo. Meaning that, again, this is an active dialogue with yourself rather than a passive reception of information. This is a really important part. And also, knowing why is important down the road as well. If you know why, if you know the value of it, it'll be easier to go through the process. When there are difficulties, hardships, it won't be easy mostly. And knowing why is important to actually withstand those difficulties better than not knowing it.
Absolutely. And to go into that, this is something else I feel, we as a culture and just humans in general seem to lean into, is that we want to have, maybe this is after the scientific method and having things more quantifiable. We want quantifiable things. We want studies. We want all the research. We want everything to say, essentially, if you do this, you're going to get this, and you're not wasting your time.
Right.
And I'm not saying these things are unvaluable, but if you just stay in the place where you're always waiting for more information and more data to start, you're never going to start. And you're missing out on the experience entirely. And experience is something that we can't represent in a quantifiable term. For example, when we say something's difficult, we're using our personal experience and our bias to say difficult. We're defining difficult with our bias. And you can understand that because we all agree upon language for symbols and words to represent these concepts or these terms, right? So, for example, I could say to you, think of a rock. And you can summon in your head the idea of a rock. And I can summon in my head the idea of a rock. But that rock can be represented in an infinite amount of ways. What's the texture feel like? What color is it? Is it big? Is it small? Is it soft? Is it hard? Brittle? All these things that are very different that we can summon in our heads that look incredibly different to each other. In the same way I could say that, yeah, getting in shape, yeah, bro, that's hard. And you would understand that concept is hard But much like the rock, it can be represented in infinite amount of ways in our mind's eye. So hard or difficult can mean an extremely varying and different things to each other. But when we go upon that path to get in shape, we both get the experience while it's through our own bias and our own experience, and we understand it as hard. And I'm able to say, hey man, yeah, getting in shape is hard. And if you've gone through a similar path, you can also relate. Even though we can't express it perfectly to each other, that experience and difficulty of understanding why it's hard is incredibly valuable. And we just can't represent that on paper, which is why we say you have to go out there, you have to go do it. We can't write studies and quantify this in a meaningful way, but it's, to me, arguably the most important part of accomplishing any goal is you have to go and try and experience it, because that experience builds upon itself, and you wrestle with it and you grow and able eventually to potentially accomplish your goal or reassess your goal and what you can get and what your goal should be. But again, it boils all down to why. Why do I have to do this? Why should I do it? Like you're saying. And without that, the first time you're craving that cigarette, you're going to go smoke it. You don't have a real why.
Right.
It's going to be hard to wake up in the morning to go to the gym, or when you're tired after work, or whatever the goal is. You're always going to have an excuse unless you have a real reason why. And then as you get more experience going through that hardship, you'll be used to it. It won't feel so hard. It'll be familiar. There's some comfortability and familiarity. So you're able to go to the gym when you're tired. You're like, yeah, I'm tired, but I want this. And it's okay that I'm tired, because I still can get something out of it.
Right.
Rather than if you read just a paper that says, don't work out when tired. Oh, you didn't get enough sleep, your body's at risk of damage. Do not work out. There's tons of data you can read that would suggest these types of things.
Yeah.
But you also got to look at people like David Goggins. That guy is a freak. He doesn't rest at all. He doesn't believe in any of that nonsense.
Not a liar.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying that that's the correct method, but unless you're willing to step outside of all the papers and all the data to test some things for yourself, you might never know that you're the next David Goggins. Maybe you're that guy.
Sure.
Maybe you're the one outlier. Or maybe you find a new methodology that works for you via your experience.
Again, like, you will never be able to find those out if you haven't tried it.
Yeah.
That's huge, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're just like David Goggins, that you're a physical outlier, but you haven't tried it, so you don't know. You don't know yet. That could be totally possible.
A lot of people find those things later in life. I mean, these ultra marathon runners that were teachers or otherwise, I just went and ran one day and I didn't stop.
Yeah, exactly.
But they didn't do it as kids.
Exactly. It speaks to the importance of experience. We're not saying that, yes, there are some minor, differences or details that are not critical, maybe almost negligible, but still, it speaks to the importance of experience. You have to experience it. Otherwise, there are so many things you may lose or miss. And experience itself means so many things. Going through hardships, tackle those difficulties, challenges, and practice, persistence, commitment. There are so many things, so many valuable things you have to do yourself. When we say experience doesn't simply mean that go out, do a task. It's not like that. I mean, there could be simple things like that, but usually those big goals, especially New Year's resolution, comes in a series of actions. I mean, it starts with planning, taking action, assessing, resoluting, examining, all that. And you have to experience those things. And when you do, you will get better at each of those tasks.
Yeah, so your skill set for the process improves.
Exactly.
Refining the process.
And not only will you get positive qualities through going through those processes, but also you will get better at making those processes more efficient. Meaning that you will get better at tackling goals, setting goals, achieving goals as you do more. And we're back.
Yeah.
Okay. Gaines looks so much better.
Much better. We're having an issue with the mic there, but we're back online. So what I was saying with the goals that people oftentimes set, or the way we usually think about goals, is that there are these faraway things that we kind of put way into the horizon, into adulthood. And I think the reason we do that and we think about those goals is because it removes the burden of responsibility.
Right.
They're so far in the future. I don't need to take action today to worry about my kids' college fund or my retirement. I'm young, or whatever the excuse is or the reason. But a goal is just an objective, something that you're setting out to complete. We have goals every day that we're unconsciously aware of. I need to eat. I need to use the restroom. All these things are goals that we've, for the most part, and most of have mastered the basic necessities of life to continue to survive. And that's the cool thing about these other goals. Once you start pursuing them and you breaking them down, and you just go through the experience, you build a habit. And they don't even become things you think about. They're just a part of who you are and what you do. Until one day, again, this is through careful evaluation, reassessing, and, maybe shifting your behavior a bit to achieve the goal. But one day, wow, you've accomplished that goal. And it feels like it didn't take that much effort. It just took building a habit. So I think we need to try to shift from thinking about goals as these faraway things, but really just, what do I want to get done today? Because eventually those days translate into years, and those years, decades, and those decades into potentially mastery or whatever.
Absolutely. And I think in that sense, it's probably better to, or I recommend those people who haven't done this many times, to start with setting a smaller goal. Start there, because like I said, you will get better at it. And especially when you do not have purpose in your life, which is very sad. A lot of people don't have purpose or meaning, or they don't even know why they were living. They're just, busy with living daily lives. But especially when you don't have those, it's easier to start with this, setting smaller goals, tackle those, and get more efficient at it. And along the way, you can parallel your journey to find purpose in your life as well.
Absolutely. I think, speaking in regard to setting the smaller goals, is you don't have to take on a goal and then keep with it if you really don't like it or you don't find value in it, because an idea of having something is so much different than having it. Like talking about fitness, we get asked a lot about what we do to stay in shape, how we handle our bodies and things like that. And it's very habitual at this point, and we enjoy it. We enjoy the ritual of staying in shape more than just looking a specific way or getting those comments.
I'm sorry. People are just laughing at us.
People are like, look at these guys, these homeless guys recording in this car.
Oh my God.
California on a beach. This is probably the most California thing ever. Yeah, dude, we're totally gonna make it, man. I swear. We're gonna live out of this car. We're gonna own that house, bro. Let's go hit the waves, man. But
oh my God, it's so hot here, by the way.
Yeah, it's really hot in the car. But man, I lost my train of thought there.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
It was so funny though.
But the goals, essentially, right?
Yes.
When you embark upon the path of achieving something and actually staying on that path is so much different than having the goal obtained. Staying in shape is basically entirely different than being in shape. That they're, for all intents and purposes, entirely different things. And you may not love being in shape. You might not like it. You might not enjoy that. So don't be afraid, once you've stayed on the path for a while and tried it out, to maybe reassess. Maybe the end goal changes from like, oh, I don't want to be ripped, to, I want to look muscular. which is,
Right.
it takes less effort than
Right.
that to look ripped, right? So maybe your goal shifts, but you can only find that shift and personalize it by going through it and having the experience. And you can put your twist on it, what your goal is. For example, another one, climbing. Let's talk about goals we've had. One of my goals, as soon as I got into climbing, was I wanted to climb V10. You know, it's a nice round number. It's 10. Sounds great. And it seemed difficult. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, you can't climb V10 unless you're gifted." And I've heard this about a lot of different things in my life, that you can only attain a certain level via essentially magic or things outside your control. And I've always had an issue with that because I'm stubborn in that sense. I believe the most valuable skill I have is, you know, I can stick with something. If I really love it and I'm passionate about it, I'll show up day after day and give my best. And, you know, so got into climbing, and I knew I had that goal, and I wanted to do it by the time I was 30. I wanted to at least climb one V10 when I was 30. And I started, 5 or 6 years ago. And I achieved that goal.
Yes, you
but
did.
It went through a lot of difficult journeys, a lot of injuries, a lot of learning training methodology, applying it differently, seeing what works for me, realize, oh, this way to achieve my goal only works for 12 weeks or only for a certain amount of time. And then I got to switch it up. It's like I got to start over again to achieve that end process. But you fall in love with the process and you make it yours, uniquely yours. And this is part of why it's so hard for me to give somebody advice when they want information about how to stay in shape, how to get better at climbing, or anything in their life really, is I can tell you all those things, but again, because it's my personal bias, I'm not really giving you a full detailed picture of what it is to achieve those goals. I can give you a rough outline, but you have to go through it and you have to find it and make it uniquely your own.
Right.
And that's where you really, I think, fall in love with something, when you go through that process. You know, it's like a relationship. You get to know somebody and you start to fall in love with the quirks and the way you interact with each other. You know, the good and the bad, you fall in love with it.
Yeah.
And that's similar to achieving a goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've been talking about this importance of experience for a while now. I don't know, about 10 minutes or so. We're doing so because it is probably one of the few most important things about setting goals and achieving it, right? Because, I mean, you just explained why explaining those experiences cannot be, you explained the practical part of it, why it cannot be really fully translated to another person. Because the language itself is probably one of the single most objective things we have, but still it's not perfect. But also, this is where we wanted to talk about the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. If you're not familiar with the work, he was a legendary samurai in Japan, and he wrote this book about his ideas on strategy and swordmanship and self-mastery.
Essentially a way of life.
And he, to me, I've read 2 times that book. To me, the idea that stands out the most is his emphasis on real experience.
What's the phrase he likes to repeat all the time?
Throughout the book, he says you should investigate this thoroughly. After explaining what it is. Right?
Yes.
So he tells you that, okay, I've explained this to you in detail, but you need to investigate this thoroughly yourself.
And this is a mantra that's repeated very many times through the book.
You should put them into practice throughout the book. Repeat it the most. And that's where he really emphasizes the real importance of real experience. That also, the really interesting thing is that it is not really confined to the body either. It also the mind. He actually calls the enabler the mind itself.
Yeah, it's funny that we're talking about that because I think I think the text can be a little bit difficult to grasp because it almost seems contradictory. A lot of things he's suggesting is, you know, as you're doing these motions, you must not be thinking about them, right? It's kind of, for somebody like ourselves who enjoy quantifiable and, you know, a more scientific approach to, I think, dealing and interfacing with reality, it comes across as a bit contradictory, right? How can I be in two places at once? But essentially the way he's communicating is you must experience it. He's using words as adequately as he can to describe the experience, which we just can't do, which is why he keeps saying you gotta try this for yourself. You have to. Here's my take on it, here's my words, but seek it out. It almost feels mystical when you're reading it. You kind of feel like you're reading a religious text because of the way it's described. But this is one thing that I feel science, unfortunately, just has not been able to explain with the concepts and the terms that science operates, is the human experience and consciousness. And no matter what, we have to deal with it and we have to interface with it. Otherwise, we're potentially missing out on a very large part of life. And we may as well be machines or something entirely different than being human. And I think it's harder in a modern day culture like we live in when we're trying to set goals and we're trying to achieve things that we just want them so badly to work and operate under very stringent methodology. In this case, the scientific method. We want repeatability. We want concrete science. We want concrete data. We want all this before we're even willing to go walk the trail. Or, you know, we want the best backpack before we're going to become a hiker, or the best shoes before we become a runner.
Right.
We want all these things that are going to say to us, they give us this kind of guarantee in life. If you have this information, this product, whatever it is, you can succeed at your goal. But I think we're deceiving ourselves, and we're robbing ourselves of our amazing ability to adapt and our skill set and find what we really are. And when you embark on a journey and a goal, you really find out who you are. I mean, for example, you know, we just talked about the V10 climbing experience that I had, but this podcast, we're in a car right now recording on a beach. We've never done this. This isn't something we're used to. This is all new and foreign to us. And we understand that this path is going to be difficult and there's going to be a lot of learning along the way. And we may completely fall flat on our faces in all regard and fail, absolutely. But for us, it won't be a failure because this is what we've desired. We've assigned this, we've seen the value in it, and we want it. So that alone makes it worthy of pursuit, regardless of us being successful in, you know, an outsider's perspective. We already feel successful in our ability to pursue. And we want to just keep it growing, to become better, more robust, stronger. But we're sitting in an uncomfortable situation right now, trying to make it happen. And it's exciting. And we're happy to be doing this. And we're happy that this can reach you, you know, the listener, whomever you are, and maybe inspire you that, oh man, look at these two. These two dudes can do it. I can go to the gym. I can eat something, or I can assign value in my life. I can think about what I want. It's not a big deal. If anything, that makes you, in my opinion, a way cooler person. You're genuine. You're yourself. You're unique. I get to interact with you as a person. Not with essentially just a byproduct of our time and culture.
Yes, it's not the value alone that we like to convey to the audience, but also our determination, our strong qualities, that those are the ones that we should, or we want to convey to the audience. I really hope that is conveyed to you and you can feel it. And even a little bit, maybe one person can feel that inspired. Oh, look, these guys, you know, I want to be determined like that too. I mean, I'm not saying that we're perfect or anything.
Far from it.
But we've been struggling a lot. We've been committing a lot for this podcast and other things along the way. And I really hope that is also conveyed to the audience as well. And, you know, I really think that that's one of the benefits, big benefits of having goals in your life, is that it adds positivity to your life. As you move toward your goal, you feel the sense of gratitude from improvement and dedication, right?
Yeah, something so unique that you can only get via this method. You can't get these strong feelings of desire or direction in your life without some type of goal and direction that you want to head in.
And we're back again.
Back for the 100th time.
You probably should, yeah.
Probably will roll my window up.
Yes, we should do that. A lot of noise. But we've had a couple of difficulties here we didn't expect.
Bumps along the road,
right.
All part of achieving a goal. See, even the small shit. It's true, though. Even in the small stuff.
True. Yes, true.
Things like this happen.
I think it's the camera's issue, honestly. I don't think it's the, conditions that we set up, expected. So anyway, it's not a problem. We're all good. What?
Back to goal setting. We want to talk about maybe methods we can apply, maybe from our industry. So I think there's some things in there that you've probably never heard about this before.
Right. So I was going to talk about 5S. It's a methodology invented and first implemented. Am I in the frame?
You're in the frame.
way?
Yeah, I see you. Yeah. You're there.
Sorry, guys. But implemented by Toyota to organize workplace for efficiency and effectiveness. It is derived from 5 Japanese terms beginning with the letter S. That's why it's called 5S. That translate to sort, set in order, shine, cleanness, standardize, and sustain. This can apply to setting. I thought we can apply this strategy to setting goals.
I think that'd be a very valuable thing that, again, maybe you've never heard before. It's a very, very common in the manufacturing world, and you're probably having some PTSD if you're in the industry we're in.
Yes.
You're hearing 5S
as
on
soon
a
as
podcast.
you hear this word.
Like, this is supposed to be my day off.
Right. So I will give you an example because that'll make it more understandable. So let's say your goal is to pay off some debt, right? So sort, the first step, which is eliminate waste. That's what the step is for. Things that are needed or against the goal. So in that example, it would be something like identifying expenses that can be avoided. For example, eating out, extra subscriptions and memberships, premium services, and mood-boosting shopping.
Mood-boosting shopping. Isn't all shopping mood-boosting? Except grocery store,
true,
maybe.
Actually. Or it could be consolidating multiple debts to minimize the process and reduce on interest rate. Or it could be selling unwanted items that you owe. And you go to next step, which is set in order. It's all about organizing what remains. The making a budget could be an example of this step. Pay more for or off your most expensive loan first. Or consolidating your debts could be included in this step.
Okay.
And next step, shine. This step is clean and inspect regularly. Maintain the status achieved by the previous steps. That's what this step is for. For example, it could be managing your budget, track bills and expenses, and ensure they are in accordance with your budget. Or it could be getting rid of your credit cards. And next step, which is the fourth step, standardize. This is about, is the camera okay? Okay. This is about capturing best practices and make it repeatable. Example of this could be automate all the payments. Or adjust your budget if needed. Comparing actual results to your budget, understanding and addressing the reasons for any variances. And goes to the last step, which is sustain, which is shizuke in Japanese, literally means discipline. Meaning, this step is for continuing commitment. And an example for this could be keeping your spendings consistent from month to month. And don't take on new debt.
Yeah, I mean, all those are incredibly efficient. I think the first 5S in regards to goal setting is probably the most important one. Being
Eliminate waste.
start. Yeah, start and eliminate waste. You can't really get it all situated if you've got all the junk holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's only so much energy we have in a day and in our life. And you've got to eliminate some things, to make
Yes.
time for the things you want to accomplish. If that's going to the gym, hey, maybe you can't come home and watch your favorite TV show for half an hour, or an hour, or whatever it is. Maybe you have to cut that out of your life so you've got time to go to the gym.
Right.
I know.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know. There's a whole bunch of kids out here playing and just looking at us. Don't take on podcasting. You end up like us kids. We set the wrong goal. But no, all those things are incredibly applicable to the process of goal setting.
Yes.
And achieving the goal.
Again, I just thought that this would be helpful and unique approach or strategy for the listeners. But obviously, there are so many strategies, there are so many methods, so find that is most suitable for you. I'm not suggesting that this is the best practice. I just wanted to give you an example of this strategy that hasn't been really discussed in the media or on Google.
Yep. No, I think
So,
now, okay, we've figured out the first step of finding a goal, right? You have to identify your values wherever they are out there. You have to have some experience to actually know what values are. So you've been in the world a little bit, you've read some things, you've had some experiences. You can kind of see, yeah, I value that. That's what I want. Okay, you've got your values. Now you can find goals that align with those values. Okay, you've applied the 5S method. You've got the goals operating. You're making steps to achieve the goal, and you're doing it in an efficient way. You've applied it. You're on the path. But let's say that maybe you can never reach the goal, or something occurs to make the goal impossible to achieve. That oftentimes is seen as failure, maybe from the outside. And it can be easily seen as failure for the person trying to achieve the goal. But I think we need to talk about that. This is the interesting thing about being on the path with heart and at going after a goal, is that by being on the path alone, oftentimes your goal is going to shift. When you're on that path, you're going to see, oh yeah, maybe that's not the actual goal I want. Maybe because it's unobtainable, maybe because it's unrealistic, or maybe because it's just, it doesn't line up with your values. Now that you've had some more experience and you've been doing this for a while, or you change it all together. Or maybe, and this has happened to me, it's probably happened to you too, you get what you wanted and you realize, wow, that was on a pedestal. It actually isn't that big of a deal. It isn't that amazing. It's kind of empty. And you realize, oh, maybe it was just the process that I really enjoyed. Not so much the goal. So I guess what I'm trying to say to the listener is that while it's important to have a goal, there's so much more value oftentimes in the journey along to achieve the goal or then redefine it. But it's always good to have a destination in mind.
yes, because that'll dictate your actions. That's why it is important to have the purpose and objective in mind. But what you said is also true. That doesn't mean, though, however, is that setting yourself up for failure. That's not what we're saying. It is, I think maybe it is important to have multiple layers of objectives, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you should define what success means. It could come as multiple layers of success. Because usually when you improve or going through the process of tackling the goal, you will improve gradually, right? So in the sense of 0 to 1, let's say the 1 is your final objective. At the end of the journey, you might have you may have gone to arrived at the level of 0.7, let's say, from 0. I see it as success.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it really depends on what you're doing, what your objective is. But my point is that you should define what success means to you.
Yeah. And
You can be harsh to yourself. Hey, if I'm not a 1 from 0, that's not success. That's fine. But you should have expectation of your journey. It may change, but it's important to have that success or definition of success for yourself, because otherwise you could be devastated at the end of the journey.
Yeah, no, that's an important part. That's why part of any goal setting, this process isn't done once. You don't set the goal and then just go. You consistently reassess. Yeah, it may not be hourly, minute, second. It might be something you do quarterly. Maybe it's yearly, depending on the absurdity or how big the goal is. That's going to affect how often you reassess. Because you have to realize, I'm here, I have this much further to go. Here's my difficulties with it. Here's how I'm struggling. And you might have to change your goal or alter it, or change the things that are under the goal, the things that make up the goal, the smaller goals of that goal. And that's critical in order to have success. Because again, when we're talking about a goal, think about something like working out. You could have the goal of getting in shape, and working out's part of that. So, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and work out. We've all seen it. We've all been there. The guy who's at the gym, who's moving the weight, but that's really lightweight. That's hardly any reps. That's a super long rest time. Wait, that's not going to do any good for anybody. But technically, he did check the box of completing the goal, right? So it's important to not only hit these check boxes, but it's how you're hitting them. You know, like, am I dedicated when am I doing this? Am I trying hard? Am I giving effort? And we have to set those goals for ourselves and those expectations as well. Like, am I doing my best? It's cliche, but it's so important. Are you actually trying your hardest or doing your best? Or are you just getting, in an uncomfortable position? You think that's your hardest because you're uncomfortable. You're not familiar. So a lot of this path is you're going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. It's going to feel wrong. But with time and effort, you're going to grow stronger in these movements in whatever aspect it is in your life, whether it's a career choice, whether it's a fitness style, whether it's music. The comfortability will remove the feeling of difficulty from it. And maybe once you've reached that point, maybe it's time to add some more difficulty in your life, because that's where you really grow, is in that difficult spot, the uncomfortable.
And all this eventually, in my opinion, I mean, you may find new goals in your life for sure, but eventually, I think the most ideal situation is that you knowing your purpose, right? Knowing your purpose of your life. I think that's the most important part. All those things, New Year's resolutions and things like that, should be decided around your life purpose.
Absolutely.
Eventually, that's the ideal situation, right? So, but however, like we said earlier in the beginning, start with the small goals and practice, get better at it, and then you will be able to tackle harder goals and getting close to the ideal that you want in your life.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And it's never ending, right?
It isn't. And those goals aren't only made on New Year's Eve. They're not made only once or twice a year. Eventually, they should be continual things, because you'll have a mastery of setting goals and achieving them. So it'll become easier. You'll become more efficient, more effective. You'll learn quicker. You'll perform quicker. And eventually, it'll just become so habitual that you'll always be on the path at heart, always trying to have something to pursue, and your life will have so much more meaning because of it. Not a lot of downtime, not a lot of free time, not a lot of boredom, but, grinding, but a very purposeful and fun grind. It's very enjoyable.
Right. Yeah, even Confucius, at the age of 40, he said, even unconscious decision was not immoral, even to him. But his life didn't end it there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So he was, right. Confucius essentially was saying, I've mastered the path of my values, so much so that when I make choices, I'm not worried about the morality of them. I'm not worried I'm making the wrong choice. I know, because he's been on that path long enough to know, This is it. This is who I am. And once you have that confidence about who you are, it's so much easier to lean into it. You don't feel uncomfortable telling people, hey man, yeah, we do a podcast and a vlog. We're new to it. You don't feel like that discomfort. You feel excitement to share who you are.
Right.
To put your will to power, to etch your name into your life and those around you and the people you care about. And that's it's a powerful and wonderful thing. Even probably bigger than the goals you'll achieve. It's just feeling that comfortability that you're on the path with heart and that, yes, this is where I should be. I'm who I am. And I'm happy to keep growing and keep walking this until I get to my destination, even if it's always changing.
Good stuff, yeah. You want to talk about our goals for this year?
Yeah, let's for this year. Okay, so
like you figured everything out?
Look, buddy, I've already reached nirvana. This is merely for the listeners at this point. I'm gracing them. No. No, I mean, like we've talked about, we have some huge long-term goals, 10, 20 years plus. I mean, the goal is primarily for this year, right? We want to see if you can climb V10 in a year, because it seems very much on
that. Wait a second.
Well, I want to see.
Yes. So if you have been watching our vlogs, we've been doing 30-day challenge to see how much we can improve on climbing. I'm the newbie here, so mostly, I mean, this applies to him as well, but he's been climbing for years. And but me, just because I'm so new to this, probably most improvements will be seen from me rather than him.
Yeah, maybe he can finally catch up, you know what I'm saying? But hey, whatever.
So, and as I was doing this, I felt like, man, I think I can approach this more strategically, and doing so will enable me to improve quickly.
Yeah,
that's what I felt. Really, I really felt tremendous improvement, even past after 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and
a lot
crazy.
Of improvement.
Yes, so I think I'm thinking about very details of my methodology, but I'm going to implement it. And I want to achieve at least V8 this year.
Oh yeah, you'll definitely do that. Not an issue.
But the bigger goal is V10. Yes.
Yeah. So speaking of the 1 year goals, we've got the one is an act on audition. We've started taking some acting classes, but obviously,
very fun.
Yeah, extremely fun. I mean, with our traveling schedule.
Shout out to Rachel, by the way.
Yeah, shout out to Rachel. Great teacher. Super enjoyable class. That's going to be difficult, right? Because we're traveling. We're not going to be able to take classes, so we'll have to do the acting with each other and
But there are certain ways to do it.
Absolutely. And we've got some ways to break that down. We're also planning on writing a script this year. At least get a rough draft done. Something of that nature.
We already have rough synopsis.
We do, yeah. So now we just got to flesh it out, learn the way of writing it, the style, and then, flesh it out essentially, right? Then one other thing we've got, but this is in the next 2 to 3 years, a Muay Thai tournament, specifically for you, but I'll enter. I love getting my ass kicked.
Right. Yeah, so it could have been earlier, but I'm still dealing with my LCL injury, which is kind of devastating area to be kicked on. So I'm trying to I mean, my body feels great right now. I mean, it's not that bad. I can compete, but I'm worried that I'll worsen the injury and not being able to walk anymore, things like that. I'm just kidding. Leading to a surgery and things like that, right? So I wanna avoid that. So that's why I'm not competing right now. But also we're doing this climbing challenge, and there are a lot of things that we're doing now. So
we're
next
busy.
2-3 years, yeah.
And then, my climbing, the plan for the longer time, at least in my life, is V13.
Right.
But, I don't expect to achieve that 10 to 15 years. So that's a continual in the background plan. So that's like a long-term one. And then, like we've mentioned, we've also talked about how we'd like to write something philosophical in nature. So that's a 10 to 15 year plan as well. Just because we take it very seriously and don't want it to be poorly written. But those are just some of our goals to give you an example so that you don't feel like you're alone out there creating these goals and you have an idea of what to expect from us, or put the pressure on us if we're not producing things in a year from now. Say, hey man, I remember episode 6 or 7 back there where you said you're gonna have a script written or you're gonna audition.
Right.
What's up with that? It's good to have friends to put pressure on you.
Pressure's on, yeah.
Yeah. And now we've told you the pressure's really on.
I told you not to, man.
You're like, don't tell them, man.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good spot to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so.
So
I mean, it's about to rain, actually. So.
It's sprinkling. It's going to get loud, so we have to
wrap it up.
So just before we go, I want to say one last thing to you guys. A goal can be thought of as an adventure. You want to go to a foreign place. You're going to meet friends along the way. You'll have joys and sorrows. And you might eventually realize when you get to the destination that the journey was that much more exciting. And that's where all the heart was. So I want to say to those that are on that path with heart right now, stay fast, stay strong. Your efforts aren't without merit or notice. And for those of you who haven't started the path yet, I'm stoked for you. I really am. I can't wait till our paths cross and we can talk about this. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
That's this week's episode of the Theory of Living podcast. Thanks for listening with us. We are Lafayette and Kai. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode.
And if you'd like to help support us, we have a Patreon page where you can subscribe for exclusive content.
Also, please share it with others who you think may find value in our discussion.
Leave a rating, a review, and please subscribe to the podcast.
Thank you again.
See you next time.